There is a mysterious paradox that almost every adult saxophone player experiences, a paradox that creates frustration, confusion, and sometimes even shame. You can hear a beautiful melody instantly. You know when something sounds good. You know when a phrase is meaningful. You know when a line breathes. Your ear is intelligent. Your musical taste is developed. You have listened to enough music in your life to know exactly what good phrasing feel like. You hear stungats and feel that relaxed, flowing beauty in every note. You hear Paul Desmond and feel how he paints sound with gentle colors and curved lines. You hear Cannibal Adderley and feel how the melody jumps, smiles, dances, but always arrive exactly where it should. You hear Ben Webster and feel the warmth, the breath, the tenderness inside the sound. You hear John Coltrane and feel the direction, the intention, the gravity pulling you through the phrase. Without anyone explaining it, your body knows. This is beautiful, this is musical, this is complete. The strange part is this: when it is your turn to create a melody, everything becomes difficult. Your phrase feels random, your time feels uncertain, your note feels mechanical, your lines feel disconnected. You try to start a melody, but nothing feels natural. Nothing feels inevitable. Nothing feels like the melody you admire so deeply. You feel a gap between the music you hear and the music you produce. This creates one of the most painful internal experiences for adult learners. My taste is high, but my ability is low. But this is not the truth. The truth is far more interesting, far more hopeful, and far more empowering. Your taste is not the problem. Your musicality is not the problem. Your creativity is not the problem. The real problem is this: you were never taught the structure of melody. You were taught scales, you were taught theory, you were taught arpeggios, you were taught fingering, you were taught keys, but no one explained melody. Not the real thing, not the hidden structure behind every beautiful phrase ever played on a saxophone. Because melody is not scale walking, melody is not randomness, melody is not play what you feel, melody is not just use the right notes. Melody has shape, melody has direction, melody has breathing, has gravity, has contour, has intention, melody has a destination. Adults struggle with melody not because they lack talent, but because they are navigating without a map. Imagine someone who knows all the colors in the world but does not know how to paint a picture. That is what happened when a saxophone player knows scales but not melody. It's not your fault, it is the educational system. Saxophone education for adults is often built around mechanics, technique, scale, theory. But melody is not mechanical, melody is emotional architecture. If no one explains the architecture, you are left with notes, not music. This video exists to reveal the invisible design behind every beautiful melody you have ever admired. Not formulas, not complexity, not academic structure that makes you feel small, but the human principle that great improviser you use without thinking. Once you see this principle, melody stopped being mysterious and began to feel possible. Because melody is not a gift, it's a structure. And anyone who understands that structure can make music that breathes, flow, and speaks. Let's begin. Why scales do not create melody? Most saxophone players approach improvisation with the same first step. Learn the scale. It seems logical. Scales give you the right notes. They give you boundaries. They give you safety. But something happens when you try to use a scale to create music. It doesn't sound like music. You can practice a scale for weeks, memorize it perfectly, play it in every key, and still struggle to make a single phrase that feels expressive. Why? Because scale is not a melody. A scale is a vertical map. Melody is a horizontal journey. A scale is a list. Melody is a sentence. Imagine someone reciting the alphabet from A to Z and expecting it to sound like poetry. That is what happens when you try to transform scales into a melody. A scale teaches you notes, but melody is not about notes. Melody is about meaning. A scale teaches you possibility, but melody requires decision. Scales teach you information, but melody requires intention. This is why improvisation based on scale sounds like notes, 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 up and down, with no contour, no brief, no shape, no story. The brain, when focused on scales, goes into safe mode. It searches for correctness, not expression. You play notes you know are allowed, but none of them say anything. Not because you lack creativity, but because you were never taught how to transform notes into ideas. A scale is like having every letter of the alphabet but not knowing how to create a word. Melody is the creation of meaning. Scales cannot do this for you. This is why great saxophonists do not think in scale when they improvise. They think in phrases, in shapes, in stories, in tension and release, in movement and rest, in question and answer. Scale supports the melody, but scale do not create the melody. This distinction is the key to everything. The moment you stop asking, what scale should I use? And start asking, what shape is this melody taking? Your entire musical world shifts. You stop thinking vertically and start thinking horizontally. You stop taking notes, you start sculpting phrases. You stop sounding like exercise, you start sounding like music. And all of this becomes possible when you understand the three invisible elements that exist in every beautiful melody ever played. Let's review them. The three invisible elements of beautiful melody. Every memorable saxophone phrase you have ever loved is built on the same foundation. It does not matter which style, jazz, blues, soul, pop, ballads. It does not matter which player, if it's Stan Getz, Cannonball, Desmond, Coltrane, Webster, Henderson, from the simplest melody to the most complex solo. The same three invisible elements are always present. If even one is missing, the melody feels flat, uncertain, disconnected. If all three are present, the melody feels inevitable, meaningful, alive. Here they are. Direction. A melody must move. It must go somewhere. It cannot just exist. It must travel. Great melodies are not wandering. They are purposeful. They begin at point A and arrive at point B. Even if the notes are simple, the intention is clear. This is why your ear loves certain melody instantly. They feel like journeys, not random paths. Number two, shape. Melody has contour, curves, arcs, rise and fall, lift and settle. Think of Ben Webster ballads. His lines do not walk, they float, they arc, they breathe. Shape is visual. Even if you close your eyes, you can imagine the contour. Adults struggle because they think in notes, not shapes. But melody is draw, not counted. 3. Breathe. The saxophone is a wind instrument. It cannot create melody without breath. Breath gives space. Breath gives rhythm. Breath gives emotion. Breath gives phrasing. Breath gives life. Without breath, melody becomes mechanical. Without breath, the line collapses. But with breath, even a simple 3-note idea becomes musical. These 3 elements are not optional, they are essential. And once you begin to see them, you understand melody as a living organism, not a technical exercise. This is the foundation, the architecture, the truth behind melodic build. The hidden structure behind beautiful melodies. What no one teaches adult saxophone players. Why your ear is more advanced than your technique. There is something fascinating about adult musician, something almost no one acknowledges. But once you understand it, you will never see yourself the same way again. Your ear is far more advanced than your technique. You may think your ear is average. You may think your ear is untrained. You may think your ear is developing slowly, but none of that's true. Your ear has been learning music your entire life. Long before you touched a saxophone, long before you studied a scale, long before you understand theory. Your ear has absorbed thousands of melodies, thousands of phrases, thousands of songs. Every time you listen to music, in the car, at home, in a concert, while cooking, while walking, your ear was developing. Your ear was learning architecture long before your fingers did. Your ear knows when a melody lands, when it resolves, when it breathes, when it rises, when it relaxes, when it says something meaningful. This is why a beautiful melody immediately feels beautiful. You do not need a theory to recognize beauty. Beauty is not intellectual. Beauty is biological. Your nervous system responds. Your breath responds. Your body responds. Your imagination responds. Your ear is trained, deeply trained, more trained than you realize. The problem is not the ear. The problem is the bridge between your ear and your instrument. Your ear knows what good melody is. Your technique cannot yet express what your ear understands. This creates a very painful experience for adult learners. You hear more than you can play. You recognize more than you can produce. You understand beauty but cannot recreate it. This gap is not failure. This gap is not a sign of low ability. This gap is not a lack of talent. This gap is natural. It is the exact same gap that every painter, writer, dancer, actor, poet, and musician has ever experienced. The ear grows first. The hands grow later. The vision grows first. The execution grows later. And here is the part no one explains. Your ear being more advanced than your technique is actually a sign that you are ready for real musical development. Because if your ear was not developed, You would not know when you were sounding musical or unmusical. You would not feel the difference between meaningful melody and empty technical movement. You would not recognize that something was missing in your phrasing. Your frustration is actually proof that your musical taste is already at a high level. You are not behind, you are ahead. Your ear is waiting for your technique to catch up. This is important because melody is not created with the fingers. Melody is created with the ear. Your fingers merely execute what your ears imagines. So the true journey is not learning more scales. It is learning how to let your ear lead your instrument. This is what great improvisers do. They do not think, what scale should I play? They think, what do I want to hear next? Their ear decides. Their hands follow. Your ear is ready, your technique is catching up. And melody becomes possible the moment your technique began to serve your ear, not replace it. So, how melody interacts with harmony emotionally? Most adults think harmony is about theory, chords, number, symbols, charts. But harmony is truth. It's not intellectual. Harmony is emotional. Each chord creates a feeling. Each movement creates a shift. Each progression creates a landscape. Melody is not an independent element. Melody is a response to the emotional landscape created by harmony. Think of harmony as the environment. Think of melody as the traveler inside the environment. If harmony creates tension, melody leans into it. If harmony creates warmth, melody relaxes into it. If harmony creates brightness, melody opens. If harmony creates darkness, melody becomes introspective. Great saxophonists are not reacting to theory, they are reacting to feeling. When Coltrane plays, he is responding to the emotional gravity of the chords underneath. When Stan Getz plays, he is shaping his lines based on the harmonic softness or brightness of the moment. When Cannibal plays, he is dancing around the emotional tension in the harmony. Harmony and melody are not separate. They are two halves of a single emotional experience. Adults often miss this because they were taught to think of harmony analytically. What is the chord? What is the scale? What is the mode? This question places the brain in the wrong state for melody. Melody does not emerge from correct scale choices. Melody emerges from emotional response. The harmony says, here is a feeling. The melody answers, here is my response. This is why truly musical melodies feel alive. They are conversation, not calculations. And here is the surprising truth. You already feel harmony, even if you do not know the theoretical terms. When a chord feels tense, you feel it. When a chord feels resolved, you feel it. When a chord feels open, you feel it. When a chord feels sad, you feel it. You do not need theory to feel emotional gravity. Your body perceives it. Melody is simply your body responding to this emotional gravity. This is why even a simple note can sound profound when placed correctly. Because melody is not about quantity, it's about placement. A single note can cut deeper than 100 fast notes when it interacts with harmony honestly. emotionally, intuitively. This is why beginners who deeply listen can sometimes play more beautiful lines than advanced players who rely only on theory. They are connected to the emotional landscape instead of the intellectual one. When adults connect melody to harmony emotionally, not theoretically, the phrase immediately sounds more musical. Not because they gained technique, but because they gained connection. Harmony creates gravity, melody follows gravity. There is one concept that explains melody better than any other. It is this: melodic gravity. Melodic gravity is the invisible force that pulls a melody towards certain notes, certain resolution, certain direction. When you hear a melody and you can often predict where it will land, even if you have never heard it before, your ear feels the gravitational pull. This is why certain notes feel stable while others feel unresolved. Why certain intervals feel peaceful while others feel tense. Why certain melodic movements feel natural while others feel forced. This pull is not theoretical, it is emotional, instinctive, deeply human. Melody sounds beautiful when it respects melody gravity. Melody sounds confusing when it fights melodic gravity. You do not need advanced harmonic knowledge to feel gravity. You already feel it every time you listen to music. Your ear knows where a melody wants to go. This is why a simple phrase that resolves perfectly feels satisfying, and why a phrase that refuses to resolve feels frustrating or incomplete. Great improvisers are not guessing, they are following gravity, they are listening to the emotional direction of the harmony and letting the melody fall into place. This is why even complex solo feel logical and natural. The player is not forcing, the player is flowing with gravity. Adults often fight gravity because they think in notes, not direction. But once you shift from which note is correct to where does this phrase want to go, everything changes. Your lines become smoother. Your phrases breathe better. Your time becomes more relaxed. Your expression deepens. Melody begins to feel like it is writing itself because you are no longer creating against gravity, you are creating with it. There is a truth that surprises almost every adult saxophone player. It feels counterintuitive, unexpected, almost backward. The simpler the melody, the more emotional it often becomes. The fewer the notes, the stronger the impact. The less complexity, the more expression. At first, it seems strange. Adults believe that beautiful melody comes from playing many notes using advanced scale, adding fast runs, or showing technical abilities. But look at the saxophonists who have created the most unforgettable line in musical history. Stan Getz did not play fast to touch the horn. Paul Desmond didn't need complicated pattern to create elegance. Ben Webster did not rely on speed or complexity to make you feel warmth, nostalgia, longing. Cannibal could play fast, faster than almost anyone, but his most beloved phrases are often the simplest ones. Even Coltrane, known for incredible technical mastery, is remembered not only for complexity, but for the way he could play a single sustained note with meaning so deep it changed the room. Why? Because melody is not measured by speed. Melody is measured by meaning. Meaning does not require complexity. Meaning requires intention. A single note placed with honesty, brief, and emotional clarity can hold more meaning than 100 fast notes played without direction. This is why simple melody reach people's heart. The mind process complexity. A single note placed with honesty, brief, and emotional clarity can hold more meaning than 100 fast notes played without direction. This is why simple melodies reach people's heart. The mind processes complexity, but the heart responds to simplicity. Adults struggle with this truth because the world they live in rewards complexity. The more complicated the job, the higher the respect. The more complex the task, the greater the recognition. So adults carry that logic into music. They believe if I play something simple, it means I am not good enough. But in music, simplicity is not childishness. Simplicity is mastery. Simplicity requires confidence. Simplicity requires courage. Simplicity requires vulnerability. Simplicity requires clarity of intention. A beginner plays simple line because they have no choice. A master plays simple lines because they understand that simplicity is powerful. There is a profound difference between forced simplicity and intentional simplicity. Forced simplicity feels empty, nervous, lacking direction. Intentional simplicity feels grounded, expressive, impactful. And here is the beautiful part. Most adult players are much closer to intentional simplicity than they realize. Because adults have life experience, emotion, memory, sensitive. You do not need a complex musical vocabulary to express something meaningful. You just need the courage to do less, to play fewer notes but with more honesty, to stop hiding behind speed and allow yourself to breathe. The saxophone is one of the rare instruments that can make a single note sound like a complete emotion. No instrument holds breath, warmth, tension, and vulnerability in the same way. Your tone is already a melody. Your breath is already phrasing. Your silence is already music. When adults embrace simplicity, their melody improves faster than in any other phase in their musical journey. Because simplicity reveals what was always there, your voice. If you want to understand melody at its deepest level, you must understand the difference between mechanical playing and storytelling. They may look similar to an untrained ear, but they exist in completely different emotional universes. Mechanical playing is based on execution. Storytelling is based on intention. Mechanical playing focuses on what the hands are doing. Storytelling focuses on what the music is saying. Mechanical playing is about notes. Storytelling is about meaning. Adults often get stuck in mechanical playing because they want to be correct. They want to avoid mistakes. They want to stay safe. Mechanical play comes from fear. Fear of being judged, fear of sounding bad, fear of being exposed, fear for not being ready. This fear creates tension. Tension creates stiffness. Stiffness kills melody. Storytelling requires vulnerability. To tell a story on the saxophone, you must allow yourself to feel and allow others to hear that feeling. You cannot hide and tell a story at the same time. This is why melody is so powerful. It forces honesty. Storytelling does not require advanced skills. It requires connection. You connect your breath to your emotion. You connect your phrase to your intention. You connect your sound to your internal state. Most adults think they need more technique to become expressive, but expression is not created by technique. Expression is created by choice. Storyteller chooses where to start, where to move, how to breathe, how to shape the phrase, how to land on resolution. They are not thinking of scales, they are thinking of direction, they are thinking of feeling, of emotion. This is why a single long note played by Ben Webster can break your heart. It isn't the note, it is the story behind it. Adults often believe they lack the ability to tell a story, but this is never true. Adults have more story than younger players. They have lived more, felt more, endured more, witnessed more. The challenge is not finding a story. The challenge is allowing yourself to tell it. Melody emerges when expression replaces fear. Your life is a red musical. Your job is to let your saxophone express it. One of the most powerful concepts in all of music is melodic identity. Melodic identity is the signature of a player, the invisible fingerprint that makes a phrase instantly recognizable as theirs. Some players develop identity accidentally, some develop it intentionally, but the result is always the same. The melody sounds like them, not anyone else. Melodic identity does not come from complexity. It comes from consistency. The way you shape your lines, the way you breathe, the way you arc your phrases, the way you sound carries emotion, the way your personality influences time and tone. Identity is personal, not theoretical. Most adults do not recognize that they already have a melodic identity forming. Because identity appears before technique. It reveals itself in the notes you choose instinctively, in the shapes that feel natural to you, in the brief pattern your body prefers. Your identity is already inside you. Melody simply gives each shape. Great saxophonists do not force identity, they allow it to emerge. When you stop imitating and start exploring, your identity begins to surface. When you stop chasing perfection and start chasing meaning, your identity sharpens. When you stop copying scales and start listening to your own voice, your identity strengthens. Adults struggle with identity because they compare themselves constantly. Do I sound good enough? Do I sound like other players? Do I sound professional? But identity is not about sounding like others. Identity is about sounding like yourself. And when you embrace your melodic identity, your playing becomes memorable, distinct, recognizable, authentic. You move from imitation to creation. You move from correctness to expression. You move from insecurity to confidence. This is the moment when melody becomes art, because art is the expression of identity, and the melody is the pathway to discovering yours. The emotional architecture of melodic phrasing. If melody is the body of music, then phrasing is the soul. Phrasing is where emotion lives. It is the difference between playing a note and expressing a note, between blowing sound and releasing meaning, between filling space and creating impact. Phrasing is emotional architecture. Most people think phrasing is about rhythm, about timing, about subdivision, but phrasing is about brief, about intention, about emotional timing. A phrase is a sentence, not a calculation. Every phrase has a beginning, a movement, a peak, a landing, just like thought, just like a feeling. When adults struggle with phrasing, it's not because they lack rhythm, it's because they have never been taught how emotion shapes timing. Emotion decides where the phrase accelerates. Emotion decides where the phrase relaxes. Emotion decides where the phrase breathes. Emotion decides where the silence enters. Great saxophonists are not counting, they are feeling. They feel the arc of the phrases. They feel when it raises. They feel when it must fall. They feel when it needs space. They feel when it needs air. The phrasing is emotional, not mathematical. This is why even simple melodies become powerful in their hands, because phrasing turns notes into meaning. Adults often forget that they already phrase naturally when speaking. You do not speak with constant rhythm, you speak with emotion. Music requires the same. Phrasing is the sound of your emotional truth. And when phrase becomes expressive, melody finally breathes. Why melody is not just music, it is identity, memory, and human truth. There is a moment in every musician life when melody stops being sound and becomes something deeper. It becomes memory, it becomes emotion, it becomes truth, it becomes identity. You may not realize this, but every melody you have ever loved is connected to your life in a personal way. You remember where you were when you first heard that saxophone line that made you stop. You remember the feeling of hearing a melody that opened a space inside you you didn't know was there. You remember the first time a melody made you close your eyes. You remember the first time a melody comforted you in a moment of loneliness. You remember the first time a melody gave you courage when life felt overwhelming. Melody is not sound, melody is emotional memory written in vibration. And here is what most adults never realize. When you play melody, you are not imitating music, you are expressing memory. Your personal history is already inside your breath. Your story is already inside your tone. Your identity is already inside every melodic shape you naturally choose. This is why two musicians can play the same melody and make it sound completely different. Same notes, same chords, same rhythm, different lives, different hearts, different internal worlds. Adults often look at master musicians and think, they have something I don't. But this is not the truth. What masters have is permission. Permission to bring their emotion world into the music. Permission to express what they feel without filtering or hiding. Permission to let their brief become storytelling. As adults, We learn to hide, we learn to protect, we learn to guard our emotion. We learn to silence ourselves in moments that require honesty. But melody is the opposite of hiding. Melody is vulnerability. Melody is exposure. Melody is truth. This is why it feels difficult. Not because you lack ability, but because melody requires emotional courage. You cannot play an honest melody while protecting yourself emotionally. The brief will be tight, the phrasing will be cautious, the expression will be suppressed. But when you allow yourself to inhabit the melody, to enter it fully, something extraordinary happens. Your tone changes, your breath expands, your time softens, your phrase becomes human, your lines begin to reflect your internal world. This is the moment when melody becomes identity. Not identity in the sense of technique, identity in the sense of truth. Because melody is the voice of your emotion, not the display of your skills. Every adult has a unique melody identity waiting to be expressed. It forms slowly from your life experience, your memory, your struggles, your joys, your losses, your dreams. Melody is your emotional fingerprint. No one else has yours. No one else ever will. This is why melody is so important to understand, because when you learn melody, you are not learning music, you are learning yourself. There is a moment in every adult musician journey that feels like a small miracle, a moment that arrives suddenly, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively, but always profoundly. It happens when melody finally makes sense, not intellectually, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Before this moment, melody feels like guessing, like hoping, like trying not to get lost, like trying to sound correct. But after this moment, melody becomes a conversation, a direction, a release, a desire, a story. The transformation happens when you finally understand melodic shape. Shape is the heart of melody. Shape is what makes a phrase breathe. Shape is what makes a phrase rise. Shape is what makes a phrase fall. Shape is what gives contour to your emotion. Adults often try to create melody with thinking, with theory, with information. But melody is not created with thought. Melody is created with direction. Direction is not mental, direction is physical. You can feel direction in your breath, in your chest, in your musical instinct. Melody begins when the breath and the feeling and the intention all point in the same direction. This is why a simple phrase can feel profound, because everything inside you moves together. This is why complex lines often feel empty, because complexity is not alignment. When adults learn what melodic shape truly is, the entire musical world shifts. They stop thinking in notes, they start thinking in arcs. They stop thinking in scales, they start thinking in landscapes. They stop thinking in technique, they start thinking in motion. Suddenly, melody is not something they chase, it is something they release. The fear of sounding wrong begins to dissolve. The pressure to be impressive loses its power. The need to prove you are musical falls away. What remains is freedom, not the wild, overwhelming freedom that creates chaos, but the quiet freedom that creates beauty. Because once you understand melodic shape, everything becomes simpler. Your breath tells you when the phrase begins. Your ear tells you where it wants to go. Your instinct tells you when it should land. This is the moment when melody finally becomes yours. Not copied, not borrowed, not limited. Yours. There is something profound that almost no one talks about. Melody is not only music, melody is healing. Think about it. Why does a single phrase have the power to make your chest tighten, your eyes water, your breath deepen? Why does a tender melody feels like comfort? Why does a rise melody feels like hope? Why does a descending melody feel like acceptance? Because melody is the sound of emotional movement. Adults carry so much inside their body: stress, memory, regret, joy, dreams, unspoken truth, unexpressed feelings. Melody gives these feelings a place to go. When you play a phrase that rises, something inside you rises. When you play a phrase that falls, something inside you relaxes. When you play a phrase that breathes, your body remembers how to breathe too. This is why adults become emotional when they finally play a melody they are proud of. Because melody is not sound, melody is release. And when you allow yourself to express something that has been trapped inside your breath for years, it feels like awakening. This awakening is not technical, it is human. And once you feel it, you understand something essential. You were never blocked because of lack of talent. You were blocked because you were afraid to let yourself feel. Melody teaches you to feel again. This is why music has survived longer than any language, any culture, and tradition. Because melody is how humans heal. Take a slow breath, not a technical breath, a human one. And imagine something real, not fantasy, not a dream, not a distant future. Something that can happen much sooner than you think. Imagine yourself a few weeks from now, not months, not years, weeks. You put on a backing track, a simple one. Nothing complicated, nothing intimidating. You lift the saxophone, you close your eyes, you breathe in. And then something happens. You begin to play a melody. Not a scale, not exercise, not a pattern, not a guess. A melody, a phrase that moves somewhere, a phrase that breathes, a phrase that rises and falls, like something alive. You feel your breath shaping the line, you feel your ear guiding the direction, you feel your body aligning with the expression. For the first time, you are not trying to sound musical. You are simply allowing your musicality to exist. You are not forcing, you are not panicking, you are not hiding. You are telling a story, your story. The melody coming out of the saxophone feels like a part of you, not borrowed, not copied, not imitated. Authentic, earnest, human, real. This moment is the real beginning of your musical journey, because melody is the doorway to every other skill. Tone, improvisation, rhythm, confidence, identity. Everything begins with melody, and the melody begins with you. Not with technique, not with theory, not with perfection, with you. Your breath, your feeling, your instinct, your story. That's the truth that no one teaches, but now you know it. And once you know it, you cannot go back. your relationship with the saxophone is forever changed because you no longer see melody as something advanced or mysterious or distant. You see melody for what it truly is, your voice. And that voice deserves to be heard. Before we finish, I want to offer you something simple, something honest, something personal. I wrote an ebook about my musical journey, not a technical manual, but a story. A companion for musicians who want to grow with honesty and express themselves through melody, improvisation, and artistic identity. If this video spoke to you, if it awakened something inside you, if it made you feel more connected to your musical truth, you may find deep value in it. You can download it for free at marcelocuco.com/ebook or here on the description of this video. It is my gift to you, a continuation of the journey you began here. Thank you for listening, thanks for feeling, thank you for allowing melody to become part of your story again. Your voice matters, your melody matters, your story matters, and the music is waiting for you, always.